All right, it's a couple minutes after 7. I call the meeting to order. Let's have the roll call, please.
All right. Chair West,
Present.
Vice Chair Miller-Juvet,
Here.
Ed Contreras,
Here.
Diane Foster is absent, Cameron Fox is absent, Taylor Funru is absent, Rich Miller is absent, Bob Silverford,
Here.
Lori Zwingli.
Here.
Okay.
Good thing you know us.
All right. Minutes, approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Do we have any changes or additions or edits?
I'll move that the minutes be accepted as written. I was not here present, but I watched it on TV, on the video, and this is what I saw in the video. So I move to be approved.
Second.
All right, it's moving second. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Announcements by board members. We'll start with Bob. Do you have anything to share?
I have nothing to share. Can I ask a question, Chief?
Sure.
With the eclipse on Monday and everything that we're reading online and social media and so forth, is the Sherwood Police Department preparing anything special above and beyond what you normally do?
Yes. So we have some pre-planning in place that we worked together with Public Works that includes some proactive fueling strategies so that we make sure we have enough fuel on hand for city staff for next week. So the goal was to stock up on fuel at the end of this week, and then we will purchase fuel through the weekend so that come Monday morning, we'll have a full ration or full capacity of fueling to carry us through in case there's difficulty getting fuel deliveries the first part of next week. In addition to that, our biggest concern is traffic, and so we have staffed extremely heavy Monday. Basically, everybody that can work Monday during the day will be working to deal with any potential traffic congestion we have through the community. We're going to have 2 reader boards out, one on the north end of town and one on the south end of town, that will remind and advise travelers to not stop on the side of the road so that we can keep traffic moving. This is an echo of a message that's been put out by Oregon Department of Transportation and the Oregon State Police. So of course the fear and concern is that as the eclipse approaches within minutes, folks will just stop or pull over to try to view it, and we don't want them to do that. It's not safe, and it's not going to help our traffic situation. So they're being well advised through messaging to get to where they need to get to, find some place to parking lot or someplace if they're traveling and they want to watch it. Really, I think that's the focus of our plan. We don't have anything going through the weekend just because Sherwood is not a destination site. So what we anticipate traffic-wise is the several hours prior to the actual event. So that's going to be Monday morning. There's not going to be an influx into Sherwood, Sunday for people to set up camps or things, because this is, like, as I said, this is not a destination for this event. So any traffic that may start driving through Sherwood on the way to the coast, which is obviously one of the destinations, and we're right on the way for anybody coming from the north. So we'll monitor that Friday and see how that goes, and if we need to kind of ramp up our response to that, we will. But at this point, we're mostly concerned with Monday morning through Monday until it's over, and then probably heavy traffic Tuesday as well as folks are coming back from the coast. So As you know, the coast is really a wild card, because there's a significant chance of morning clouds there, so I have no idea, I haven't heard anything about how the response to the coast has been. We have heard, as I'm sure many of you have, that the response to Central Oregon has been exactly what they anticipated that it would be. They've already, for example, they've already run out of fuel in many of those communities, to include Prineville, Madras. So that they're really being impacted, but they were expecting that. So those two communities in particular are having festivals, so it's obvious that they were going to get overrun. The latest weather forecasts are that there may in fact be a heavy pressure trough that moves through the coast that may help those clouds hold off offshore. So we'll see what happens, and if that's the case, then maybe central Lincoln County will in fact be a popular spot. But as I said, most folks that are going to go there would have already made that determination sometime this weekend probably. So there's some anticipation that there could be a lot of folks that come north from the Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia areas just Monday morning to come down into a destination along the path of totality. So that's really kind of what we're thinking, potential impact. So certainly it's going to affect I-5, and we're prepared for it to affect 99. So that's where we're at with that. It's a good question. We put in a lot of time to kind of get ourselves in a ready situation for that.
Okay, thanks. Lori?
National Night Out, I'm gonna leave to the chief because I wasn't there. And we did not have a meeting today for the Sherwood Police Foundation. We took this month off. So no further announcements from me.
All right.
Are you looking at me?
Yes, I am.
I said, no, you were gonna talk first.
No, I'll be last.
Not necessarily an announcement, but something for consideration. So unless I'm misunderstanding or misremembering, I think it is counted, there's 6 of us whose terms end this December, right? And so I'm wondering what we need to do to start planning or talking to our neighbors about their interest, or I know how long it took last time to get a few board members through the council process, and so I'm a planner, so I like planning early, so I'm wondering if we should start doing that or discussing what that might look like.
Yeah, another good question, good point. So I had already talked to Amy about this, because at one of the festivals, I saw her in some concerning attire. So
Yes, I know the other side.
anyway,
Appropriate attire.
I guess that's a matter of perspective.
I'm sorry, there's a story here.
Were you wearing something from the
She
fire
was-
department?
Yes,
Maybe.
yes, she was.
Oh, I have seen.
So here's what everybody needs to know. As a new board, everybody, with the exception of, I think, 3 or 4 of you, your term all started at the same time. So that presents a potential and significant hardship for a board if we look at replacing those positions all at once. There's been a lot of discussion amongst city staff, senior leadership team about this issue and trying to bring all boards consistent, and whether the terms all began on January 1. Needless to say, nothing's been done with that. So the first thing that I would do is highly encourage everybody, if you're interested in continuing to serve on this board, please apply for reappointment. I suspect there will be some interest to get some new people on, but the fact of the matter is we have, as I said, 3 or 4 new folks that have joined in the last several months. So that is occurring anyway. My desire is certainly going to be to try to retain some momentum, because since it's a new board, as you know, we're still to some degree in the process of establishing projects and things to work on. So it would be very difficult for me as your staff liaison to really kind of start up brand new with 50% of the board members. So I would encourage you to reapply. I don't have control over the appointments, I have input, but And then secondarily, yes, encourage others to apply. We always like to have folks apply for all boards and commissions, so encourage people to do that.
So Chief, when would we start the process then for advertising? If it, last time I think it took 2 or 3 months at least to get through the council process. So should we start, or I
Yeah,
guess that's a process led by the department, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll probably, if the terms end of December, or in December, I'd have to look at the exact date. We'll probably want to start sometime in October, I would think,
Okay.
November, with some advertising. And so that we can have a recruitment period and set up some interviews and go from there. But certainly, Councilor Young is here on behalf of Councilor Harris, but I would certainly plant the seed with her and with Councilor Harris that we need to retain some members with some tenure so that we can continue that momentum, so.
Okay. Good
I know
question.
how you apply, but to reapply, is the process the same?
I'll
You
have to double
submit
check
it.
on that. I don't know that you have to, I don't know if you have to submit an application or not, so I'll have to get back on that.
Thanks. Ed, anything? Okay. I would like to call out a big thank you to Officer Humphrey, not Freeze. This week, our neighborhood had door-to-door sales people working it, and based on some community policing that was done by another officer interacting with my wife Tina, found out that they needed to be permitted. So when I was coming home from work this week and a van was parked in the middle of the street and people were getting in and out of and they weren't moving, when I finally got to my driveway and saw people walking the street and stuff, I was prepared. And they even rang the doorbell with a sign right above the doorbell that says no soliciting unless you're a kid. So I asked for ID and permit and he didn't have it, so I called the non-emergency dispatch, and Officer Humphrey proceeded to check them out, and it turns out they had a Metro permit, which I guess works. That's what he said when he called me back, that the city allows a Metro-wide business permit to be out knocking on doors, but they had been pulled over the night before as they were leaving town for a traffic violation. But the fact that the officer followed up with me, I appreciated. So wanted to do a call out for that. So
That's a good point you bring up. At this time of the year, when school's starting, this is when all the high schoolers come out selling. We already had the football guys come by, but you have band people and this, this and that. Do they need permits?
We obviously take a different approach with, school groups. You got high school kids selling fundraiser cards. But I think technically, you have to have a business license to conduct door-to-door solicitation, or unless you're a nonprofit. So there is some nuance with that. It depends on whether you're selling something or asking for donations. Sorry, I don't have a very good answer for you.
So what do you mean when you say unless you're a nonprofit? Because most of those would be nonprofits. 'Cause if you're-
Well, right. So, for example, we have a lot of magazine sales, right? Those aren't nonprofit folks. Those are folks selling magazines for profit. They have to have a business license, and they have to have contacted the city. That's the easy part of that answer. So, in that extreme, in that scenario, they absolutely have to have checked into the city and gotten a license to do that. Oftentimes they don't, but many times they do. We have a group that is pretty consistent, and they generally check in every year. A nonprofit, we also have a group from, I think they have Gospel Mission or something in some part of their name, and they do door-to-door solicitations. They check in with us every year as well. I don't know that they're required to have a business license, but it's certainly beneficial for us, for them to check in. And what the city has done in the past is given them allowance to do that as long as there aren't any issues, and we can revoke that at some point if some of their members begin to harass folks or whatever.
Well, I know through my neighborhood social media that there was the next day a bunch of posts about this group going around, and most of us have a little window next to our door and people looking in after they rang the doorbell and stuff like that. So all I did was comment on what I was told by Officer Humphreys and everything, but based on that conversation, half the neighborhood has that camera in the doorbell, whatever that's called, and I was told that we're getting one. So. All right, anything else to share? Or?
You could probably help anybody that wants to get a Ring doorbell.
Oh, well, yes, okay, so we do have a contact with
Vendor?
the vendor, so
Okay,
I don't know who it is off the top of my head, but I can find out. for you.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure half of Sherwood would like to know that.
Exactly. Okay, so we're to business, and last month we had a very healthy discussion about next steps and challenges, and we focused a lot on looking at the matrix study and looking at it on all the other recommendations and maybe doing some other things. And we've been talking about this for a couple months. So on Tuesday, since the chief wasn't here last month, and Captain Daniels was, I met with the chief and city manager Joe Gall on Tuesday. Chief recommended that just so that there was a clear understanding of what the expectations were for the advisory board. So one of the things I wanted to just read to reaffirm, based on Joe's recommendation, our purpose for us being here is to assist the police department to establish priorities for the delivering of police services, including types and levels of service and quality. Assist the police department with strategic planning and goals. Recommend strategies for the future. Develop a public policy on policing in Sherwood. And lastly, advise the police department and or city council on topics related to public safety. So that's right off the website. That's kind of our chart. So, and the other thing that Joe reminded me of was back on city council meeting, February 21st. That's when the council took up what are we going to do with the proposed Washington County staffing. As you remember last year, we did a lot of work sessions and had a lot of discussions. And that meeting is when Joe put it on asked to be on the council agenda, asking the council for direction. And the mayor followed up and said, yes, we need to give staff, Joe and the chief, some direction. She said, clearly the community wants additional services, but we have the 2% limit on funding that the citizens passed. So we need to be creative. And this first attempt at looking at Washington County was a creative thing, but clearly from her perspective, what she heard from the public was there wasn't support for it. And then Council President Harris mentioned, and I'm going to pass it around, that we were finalizing at the time the strategic plan. And she thought that was a good place to, that it was great that it was being done, and that it should be a foundation for which any future work should be done. So I just wanted everybody to have a copy of this so that it was a reference. Since our liaison had raised it at this meeting. So, and again, she said, Council President Ferris said that key thing from her perspective was hearing from the citizens on what services and stuff. Then Sean Garland raised the issue that he thought the other recommendations in the matrix study needed to be reviewed and vetted. So, because all the energy had been done on the Washington County part of it. The chief, and I'll speak from what I listened to, the department is willing to use and have, is very willing, and it's useful to have outside input. And you know, the money that was spent was useful, and that all input was his point. And then Council Member Young went on the theme of being creative and looking for options that will help meet the future needs. That was the message that I heard from you. And again, the chief hit on the creative ways. So with that, and I'm going to hand out one more thing. What I did is I took the matrix study, executive summary, and the list of recommendations and just pulled that out so everybody had it. There's two there. Because I think this is what we heard from that council meeting was, this is what a starting point of with what city council wanted to look at. So I just wanted to make sure that we had it. So based on the conversations that the chief and Joe and I had, it was recommended by Joe that the chief and our council liaison, which here are acting, that take it to council and to the mayor to see if a representative, probably myself, would come to a work session before one of the future council meetings and just say, here's what we'd like to do, so that we can get the sign off. We don't really need to start barreling down with that. We're an advisory board, as Joe reminded us, that we need to get that blessing before we waste a lot of time. And there may be something else that's come up that we're not aware of that they need to have a look at. So that's a summary from the meeting that the chief and Joe and I had. And Chief, do you want to add anything?
No, just, I guess, augment. I think you represented that fairly well. So the reminders that that I jotted down and are that, as Chris just stated, all boards and commissions play an advisory role to council. Council is the one that's tasked with making the decisions as the policymaker. So what we need to do is simply have the chair come to a future council meeting. It can be sometime, probably want to be sometime in September. Just because we all have to recognize that there's a lot of things going on right now. So, but it's just a very simple time to go before council and lay out the plan and say, this is what the police advisory board would like to move forward on, and spell that out briefly and just say, and we just want to get a thumbs up from you, council, that that's the direction you would like us to go. In the meantime, then we have some steps we can take as a board to start that work. The anticipation, of course, is the council can say, yeah, absolutely, that's what we want from you, and we'll go. And in fact, what became known as recommendation number 6, which was the county recommendation, when that was put to rest, the mayor tasked the city manager and myself and said, we're now going to put it back in the hands of the city manager and the chief to move forward with this. So we're going to move forward with it through you all and this board, because that is absolutely right in your wheelhouse. So, but Joe felt, and I agree, that it's important that no board, not this or any board, go down a path on their own without making sure council's dialed in. So that's what needs to happen. Is just get the thumbs up from council on the work we want to do, and then we'll get cranking.
Discussion?
You know, just looking at some of the recommendations, a lot of the things in here are gonna cost money for parents. And the budget is tight. At the meeting the other night, talking about the recreational center and so forth, if, what is it, Kim? The one that's gonna be
Health fitness.
health fitness is selected, we're gonna have probably as a city have to come up with more money. And so I guess my question is, if we are given the go-ahead to work on these things, and some of the things that we believe strongly ought to be implemented and cost money to implement them, where's the money gonna be coming from? Is there money to do that, or are we just spinning our wheels by studying this and saying, here's what we need, but it goes nowhere because there's no money? So, I don't know, Kim, maybe this is a question for you, or,
Want me to answer that?
You can.
Sure,
I'll chime
okay.
in after you.
We have this.
So 2 months ago, when, because I wasn't here last month, but 2 months ago, we had really kind of another robust discussion, and a big part of the discussion centered around this. And the reality that I think everyone needs to face is exactly what you just said, and that is, within the budget, within the projected budget that we see for the next couple of cycles, there isn't going to be, the funding, the revenue sources to address the needs that have already been identified in the staffing study and probably need to be fleshed out in the work that we're going to do as a board. So the reality is there needs to be additional revenue that comes from the community. The community's going to have to identify that as a priority. They're going to have to agree that they're willing to pay for these enhanced services. And whether it goes through some, levy or some kind of an additional fee, it's going to end up going to the community. And I think that's why it's important that we put this plan together, that council's on board with us, knows the plan we're working on, so that at the end, when that work is done, really the vision then, in meeting with Joe the other day, is that at the end of that work, the advisory board, the entire board would come with myself and sit with council in a work session and lay the plan out and say, okay, here, we have now fleshed this out, and this is what we have found, identified, recommend, and we now have to make a decision on how we're going to do this. Joe confirmed in our meeting the other day that there's not going to be, from his perspective, of course, council makes the final decision, but from his perspective and recommendation, there's not going to be a desire to move forward with some kind of a levy or fee, voter approved, without doing some polling, which again is another part of the conversation we had 2 months ago. So we recognize that. I think that reality has been confirmed for us, but really it's not anything that we haven't discussed, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Which again makes the work that you all are doing so important, is because as we lead to that point, you're engaging with your friends and neighbors, and there could potentially, as a part of the plan, I keep referring to the plan, I think we're going to talk more about that here in a minute, but as a part of that, there could be potentially, open houses or opportunities for the community to weigh in on this, through you individually, or potentially at meetings, or other occasions. So that's where I see this going, because there's gonna have to be a funding source ultimately for those things that we're gonna identify. So to put it simply, we have shortcomings. We're gonna find a solution for those shortcomings, and then present that to the community, and they're gonna have to say, yeah, we recognize that, we support it, and we're willing to support it financially.
And all the more reason to go to the council at this point before we start heading down a path that clearly is gonna head into a plan or a set of options that's gonna cost more money.
And I have a question about that. So I did not go to the meeting about the why, and I don't want to rely on what I see on Facebook. So,
You're talking about the council meeting?
yeah, yeah. So you just said though that if, with the health fitness, we're gonna have to come up, the city's gonna have to come up with some money with that option. Is that right?
That's what I heard. It's
So-
gonna be 5 years until they break even.
Yeah, we passed a resolution to enter into negotiations with Health Fitness. Their projected financials that we received in the RFP, or in their proposal, showed, the original one showed a net loss all 5 years. They provided us a revised one that still shows net losses years 1 through 4, and then the 5th year finally starting to be on the surplus side. So in those first 4 years, off the top of my head, I think it's about $500,000 in losses. So, I don't know, 200,000 each year.
For who?
That the city would need to subsidize for them to operate our facility.
Okay, in addition to what we, is that extra money that we're gonna have to pay over the course of these next few years?
Yes.
That we're
we
not
don't
paying
pay
anywhere right
anything
now.
towards that
Okay,
facility
so
now.
if I'm supposed to go to my neighbors and I'm supposed to talk about trying to find additional money for some of these other options, I already know that the question I'm gonna get is, why can we not fund another officer if we are stepping right up to the idea of paying all this extra money for health fitness when we could have gone with the why and it wouldn't have cost us anything?
Those are great questions. And my answer to that will be the contract has yet to be approved.
Yeah.
So council has, so they're gonna go into negotiations,
Mhm.
and council still needs to approve whatever comes back to us.
Can I add another point? It's important that everybody understands that the resolution, like what was that thing called? The resolution specifically says, or specifically authorized the city manager to enter into negotiations with the operator in ranked order. So, he starts with the first ranked, which is, we know is Health Fitness. If for some reason the negotiations don't go well, he can close those negotiations off and then move into negotiations with the number 2 operator, which is YMCA. So it is potential, there is a potential, based on the way the resolution is written, that council would not see a proposed contract from the number 1. I mean,
Or approve of.
or approve. But that, so I just wanted to offer that clarification.
And I understand, I thank you for that clarification.
But I think you're gonna get those questions.
Well, I am, and so I am asking city council, why is it when this community has spoken through us and through Matrix and said, we want another officer, we want another SRO? Why is that being ignored? But we're gonna hand this off to Health Fitness. How do those two things jive? And how am I supposed to tell my fellow community members that this was a sound decision?
I'm not gonna speak for all of council, because I think you'll get divided answers on council. As for me, I
I know you didn't vote for it.
chose the why for the financial aspect, because I don't think if we need to spend that money, if we don't need to spend that money, we shouldn't. For the reason that we have a line of things that are waiting to be funded, that we didn't have the funds for in this year's budget, including police, including deferred maintenance, including, comprehensive plan. So That's a good question for all of council.
Is it all coming out of the same bucket?
It all comes out of the general fund, would be my understanding.
Chris, could I just
Sure.
make one more thing about this study? If you go to the council and council says we're in trouble, going back to the fact that I believe there are 6 of us whose terms are up in a year, and going on the assumption that there will be a few people that do not want to continue, we're going to have even more people coming in new. Might it be prudent to wait until that they come on to start working on these issues, than to start working on them, say, in October, and then a month or 2 later, you have basically a new board? Just tossing that out. I'm not looking for an answer, but I think it's something to think about.
So I put that back to the chief, we're his board, and he's gotta figure out the whole, along with council, how they wanna deal with terms and overlap. Bob, I understand that, but I think laying some good analysis with experienced people that may be going off needs to be captured in some process and providing some input. That the full recommend, that we're gonna be able to pull off a full recommendation before the first of the year when a bunch of people are going off, I doubt. We may be lucky, I don't know. With as long as it took us to go through recommendation number 6, I don't know. But I still think that there's experience that may go off that we want to capture in some of this preliminary work. So that would be my only counter. But I hear what you're saying.
Fair enough. You know, I brought the study here that I know I personally have gone through twice, pretty lengthy. And every new member is going to have to read this and study it, become familiar with the issues, and you don't just do that overnight. So,
No.
something to think about.
Any other discussion? You've
I
been
would
quiet.
just, well, I know, right? I would just add to Chris's point that with the turnover and maybe starting the process now as opposed to waiting until a new board, we have also extensively talked to our community members, and so making sure at least that those voices and that information is captured before anyone transitions, I think is really important too. Even if no decisions are made, at least we can start the data gathering process to help inform future board members or whatever the decision is or recommendations are that we make.
All right. Any other discussion? Chief, you have anything else to add?
I would just add that, good point, but I think we need to get started now. I think the intention is that this not sit long before it goes to council. When we met, it was 3 days ago, and it was clearly Tuesday council meeting was not, right? We met on.
No, we met on Tuesday
We met
that
on
morning.
Tuesday before that, and clearly that was not the council meeting to take this to because of what was going, already scheduled. So I don't want to imply that we need to wait until, deep into September, October. I just think there needed to be some time to move into other business to have that. I mean, we're talking about a 5-minute,
If that.
visit from the chair to say this is where we're going. And even if that were to take 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's no reason why we can't start our work pronto. And I would offer that the bulk of that work is going to be done by myself and your police staff with input from the work group or whatever you call it from this board, right? It's not something that's going to be done in the monthly meetings. It's going to be something that's going to be done
With the subcommittee.
with a small group of folks. And frankly, I'm already, have already been preparing to put this response, or Councilor Kuiper call it a white paper, there's lots of things you can call it, put it together. And it's just a matter of sitting down and saying, pouring over some data and saying, what's the position? And I may make a recommendation, this is where I think we're at in the position, and from that, that group that's helping us to say, yeah, that we're hearing that matches with what the community, what we're hearing from the community, that makes sense, chief, or no, that really doesn't. That hasn't been identified as a need, you need to explain that more, maybe we need to move that into a different So I think we can really get cranking on that, and my perspective as a staff on the board is, as challenging as turnover and you know, the nature of those board placements and resignations and everything, those can't control our work. I mean, they just can't. We never get anything significant done because it would take more time than somebody's, you know, placement on a board, and then halfway through the project, oh, they're done now for some reason, whatever reason it may be. So that's just the challenge in the nature of boards and commissions, as you know, because you're a veteran in working for Sherwood, so.
So the only other thought that I had as I was thinking about this after Tuesday's meeting was that since this study was done and since the public comment and involvement, as limited as it was on the matrix, was done, there's some new planned developments and stuff in town. Population-wise, a hotel motel, I guess it's a hotel. And a new high school, which will create more development, and those sorts of things, that I'd almost like to maybe have somebody from the planning committee come in and say, you know, this is what we see in terms of future growth and maybe population. I don't know if they do that, but at least what's on the plans and the vision with the expansion of the urban growth boundary and those sorts of things, so that we have some projections as we look to the future to assess needs too. And I think that's one of many things that I think this was a little lacking in. Just use some basic growth type stuff. So things have changed. So I think that's one thing that we can help facilitate in terms of the futuring aspect.
Right. Kim, there's a very committee that was put together to look at what Sherwood going to look like in 20 years.
Is there a committee?
I thought that there
So they're working on,
was a working group, a committee, whatever you want to call it, that was put together, and I believe that something came out from the city that if you want to be on this,
yeah, the comprehensive plan
the
update.
comprehensive plan.
There's a name for that committee, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's, because,
And they're looking at what's the future hold.
right, and what's our zoning look like in the city.
Why are you doing that?
Perfect.
I think, Mr. Chair, in the meantime, I think probably it would be wholly appropriate if this board would like to have, at our September meeting, have Julia or a member of her team from community development come in and give us a snapshot of what they have. And I might suggest something as simple as putting the map up and with, you know, on the screen and showing these are the future developments that are anticipated, and just kind of show where those are. Because I can kind of tell you off the top of my head, but I can't get into the, you know, the real data about what does that mean in terms of numbers, do we think, and so on and so forth.
That would be awesome if we could arrange that.
But then if you could also share then with that new information, what you think the policing, the staffing needs to be in terms of sworn officers or other community resources that come along with communities of whatever size we're growing to.
Okay.
All right. Ed?
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Before we go on, I'm getting in my mind some conflicting vibrations, I guess we would call them, okay? From one aspect, I heard that we should be looking at each recommendation and trying to flesh each out to see how it works. And in another, we're trying to create something for the future. I'm not sure that I'm catching that in the whole aspect of this. So what we're trying to do, we either flesh out what we have here, work it all out, or we try to figure out what we're gonna need in the future. I don't see that this is a future kind of a need. It's what we need now and in the immediate maybe future, within a 5-year period, but
Well,
which way are we going?
I think if ultimately we're looking at a levy or a fee and having to go to the public with that, that's more of a long term. Because you're not gonna wanna go back, you're not gonna be able to go back every couple years to do something like that. And with, when I rewatched the February 21st council meeting and the discussion on the matrix study and stuff, really, like the chief said, Joe and the chief were told to take this and develop, be creative and develop what we need. It wasn't per se, use this wholeheartedly. It was, this is one, was a basis that the city spent money on. And there's recommendations in here, but really there was discussion about the SRO need from council person Robinson. She really badgered the chief about the SRO because we didn't have one at the time. So my sense, and you can go and watch that, it's about 20 minutes of a discussion, get a real sense that they wanted Joe and the chief to be creative in meeting the needs of the community with regards to policing and public safety. That's what they were asking. And that they put off the table number 6. They didn't say, go look at, the other 12 recommendations. They just said, be creative and give us solutions.
So if I can add to that, Ed, I think it's a combination. So of what you are thinking or seeing, hearing these two different components, I think really they kind of come together. So the staffing study, as we have discussed, really is at surface level, right? You and I have talked about, they didn't take into account, well, what does the future look like with respect to these recommendations. I think it's going to be a really good starting point for us to take these recommendations and say, okay, this is a good place to jump off on. But the information about what Sherwood looks like tomorrow is going to be critically important as we talk about what the police department should look like to be able to, retain the efficiency and the quality and the crime rate, the safety, and so on and so forth. For example, we say, we want another SRO. And the staffing city says, yeah, you should have another SRO. Well, that's surface level. That's like right now, today, we should have another SRO. 3 years ago, arguably, we should have had another SRO. We're about 2 years from opening one of the largest high schools in the state of Oregon. I can put 2 SROs in that building and keep them busy. So to say we need another SRO is I would consider, anybody could look at me as their chief and say, for you to say we need another SRO is extremely short-sighted because you're not thinking about 5 years from now. And so that's, I think, where these two components have to come together. Is it wouldn't help us to put together a plan that, okay, this is what we need right now. That's certainly going to be a part of it. Because I can give you a list of things that we're not doing right now that I think, as your police chief, we should be doing to some level or better than what we are. Investigation, supervision, things that are going to, that carry significant risk with them. And then there's other things that we need to start looking at so that we can do better 2 years from now, 4 years from now. Because our reality is that we have the level of safety and we have the type of community that we have because of the work and the investment that the community made a decade ago. And so we have to plan for a decade from now, or else our legacy is going to be, why is Sherwood not the way it used to be? Why do we not have the safety that we used to have? And it's going to be because we're not able to keep pace with where Sherwood is going. So when you're talking about a high school that's going to be built for 2000, the day the doors open, and it's going to be set up to easily be expanded to 2,400, I can tell you, that's bigger than probably 20% of the cities in the state that have police departments. That is a big footprint in Sherwood that has to be kept safe, that has to be, this sounds harsh, and I don't mean it in the negative sense, but it has to be policed. When you talk about Sherwood West coming, and then, now you're talking about a middle school that's built to handle 1,500 people, students. You talk about Sherwood West. I have maintained, I told Joe and Chris this in our meeting the other day, I'll tell anybody that wants to listen to me. The day that high school is finished, the concept plan from Sherwood West was put together to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. I'm telling you, based on what I've seen occur in other communities in Oregon, the day that high school is completed, Sherwood West is going to rise up out of the ground at a rate that's going to catch everybody by surprise.
But within 5 years, probably.
Probably, right? So, I mean, you're going to see the same thing happening. The new high school off of Shoals Ferry, the Beaverton School, it's nearing completion, and what do you see happening right across the street? The homes are rising up out of the ground. We have to be ready for this. So that's kind of a long answer, but that's where you're getting two different vibes, and I think we need to bring those vibes together in the plan that we put together, and we start with, as a framework, if you will, with the staffing study, because that's the work we have. The city invested in that. We need to take everything we can from that and roll forward.
And it will help, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that helped and made some sense.
It does, but in addition to that, especially if in the future we're looking at going out for either more taxes or fees or whatever, you should be able to show what has come from the past in order to build up to where you are.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
that people know that, this has been happening over a
Yes.
period of time, and this is what has occurred. So
Right.
we have to have a basis
Full
for.
picture.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. And that'll be part of it as well.
And I think it will help articulate future budgeting needs, so when council's negotiating budget, they can say, oh, well, we can't, if we want to fund this in a year or two for the policing recommendations, then we probably should wait a different cycle for whatever else it is.
All right. Are we done with that?
I am, sure.
Okay. All right, council news.
Sorry, can I ask a question before we go to councilor news? So I was reading the minutes from the last meeting, and it looked like someone from the planning commission was here, the planning board, asking for some continued dialogue about maybe traffic issues and whatnot. Was there any, I didn't read any decision that came from that discussion. Is that something we'll be talking about at a future meeting? Or,
What I think was said was we're here to participate in that when you need our input.
okay, all right.
And I would see that as a part of the work we're going to get started on. And so at some point, if we start specifically dealing with that, then there could be some, an invitation to somebody from the planning commission to participate.
Okay, got it, thanks.
But there is some overlap there with a lot of what they look at with traffic studies and so on and so forth.
And the discussion was mostly about some complaints that have been happening. So.
Probably similar to what we all hear.
Counselor, anything to share?
I
was just trying to pull something out that, a couple things that would be of interest to this board that's coming up, so we've already talked about the landscape, so we can put that first. We have a work session coming up on the 29th, and during that work session, we'll be talking about wood smoke and potential burn ban ordinance, and also some possible revisions to the sign code. Oh, and then we're gonna talk about, the Family Justice Center, and whether the city is willing to donate some towards that.
What's that?
It is a center that's being opened in Beaverton, correct? Or is it?
Yes.
Beaverton. And it's a center that's going to have multiple resources within that center where displaced families or can come, am I explaining this right?
Domestic violence.
Domestic violence, thank you, can come and have one place to fund the resources that person needs to. And so most of the cities, surrounding cities have pledged a certain amount of money to help fund that, pledging it for 3 years. So that's what we're gonna discuss for that. And while you guys are talking about sending somebody from your board to the council, I just got notice today that the September 5th council meeting will be canceled. And we shifted all to the 19th. No council meeting on there. And then the other thing that the city manager approved this week, which maybe you know about, was installation of no parking signs along between Cherry Lane and Terrapin Drive. There was lots of parking there, making it a little bit hazardous coming out on some of those streets, so he did approve that this week. We have a council position open for appointment. Anybody out there wants to apply? Applications due by next Thursday.
Bob?
There's also an open position for
For
people to
what?
run. And those are due by the 31st, so,
There's an open position for what?
city council.
For election.
Oh, for the election?
Well, we have an open position in which we're going to appoint somebody,
Right.
and then we have that same position for people to run for election.
In November.
In November.
And that's Dan King's,
Dan King's spot, because he moved out of town.
so the election in November would be for 3 years?
It'll be for his remaining, so about 3 years, yeah.
Okay.
You're interested, Lori?
Oh, no. Appreciate the thought.
Chief?
Okay, so I want to go over at Chair West's suggestion. Summer has been extremely busy so far, particularly August. So we discussed prior to the meeting starting that we had a gun safety workshop presentation in July. We had 2 sessions. And the reason I want to announce that is because that took place at the suggestion of this board, which was really cool. It was, the attendance was affected, I think, by maybe some other things going on, but it was well, decently attended, and it went very well, and we were able to have Officer Azla, who was our last SRO, and Officer Bertrand, who we believe will be the next SRO, in front of the kids. So it went very well. We partnered with the library and utilized their storytime format and advertising and to get word out. I think we dropped the ball. We didn't advertise, so there were some people that we missed because they would have been looking for the advertising from us. So it's a really easy program to put together. There's no reason why we can't do it again. I don't know if we'll get it done before school starts, but certainly we can maybe do it in the fall. So, and then August, we started off with a great bang on the 1st. It was the 1st, wasn't it? National Night Out?
Yeah,
It was,
yes, it was.
yeah,
this
August
year.
1st. National Night Out, if you recall, that was a 100-degree day. And so it was extremely warm, and that impacted the timing of the audience, and I think probably the size to some degree. But once it started to cool down, people started to show up. So we had a very successful event. Partnered again with the Sherwood Police Foundation, who provided the hot dogs and other things, refreshment things that were there. It was a good event. We had the FBI with us again. We had visits from Washington County Sheriff's Office. So it was a good event. And then, the week later, on Wednesday, August 8th, we had our first ever Coffee with the Cop at Symposium from 8 to 10, actually 10:30. We stayed a little longer. This is a national program. If you just Google Coffee with a Cop, you'll find the webpage, you'll find hits from all kinds of different locations that are doing it. It's been around for a couple of years. It's a very, very successful program that started in Hawthorne, California, Hawthorne Police Department, and then it just kind of spread like wildfire. I honestly have been putting off starting the program just because it's another resource funnel. And it's just, I just have become very sensitive to the staff and just saying, hey, we've got more to do beyond your normal duties. But finally, I thought, we just gotta make this happen. It's too good of a program. So, partnered with Symposium, and it was a great first event. We have a really good turnout for our first one. We also had people there people that weren't there that have shared with me since then that they're looking forward to the next one. Maybe they didn't hear about it or whatever the case may be. So,
Or on a weekend.
What's
Or
that?
on a weekend. for us.
Maybe on a weekend or maybe on an afternoon. So the next one is gonna be in October, and I believe the date is the 9th. We will confirm that, but it's national, it'll be held on the same day as National Coffee with the Cop Day. So they've created a national day for it. So there'll be coffee with the cops all over the country and certainly Washington County, and we will have one at Symposium again, so that'll be the next opportunity. So if you're close, maybe live in the neighborhood, you might wanna come out.
Half a block.
Don't think I didn't think about strolling down the street, but there was people that were there, and it was actually good. We had several officers there, and we're really focusing on having officers there. I feel like the chief and the captains, and that's great, we're gonna be there, but I really want folks to talk and meet with their police officers. And so we had several there, lots of good conversation, and that's really what it's all about. Again, if you look at the website, the description of the program is, it's coffee and conversation, that's it, there's no agenda. It's not intended to be a gripe session, it's just intended to say, hey, my name's Jeff, who are you, let me get you a cup of coffee, let's just visit. Certainly if folks want to share issues or concerns, we welcome that. But anyway, it was a good event. So that was on the 8th. On the 16th, which was last night, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dates are running together. We had a tip-a-cop at the old spaghetti factory. So as you can see, boom, 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 3 weeks in a row. And we're not done. August isn't over yet. But so this old spaghetti factory is a new sponsor for Oregon Special Olympics. So they wanted to have tip-a-cops. So they had, last night was in Oregon was Old Spaghetti Factory Tip-a-cop night. So we're fortunate that we have an Old Spaghetti Factory here, so we showed up in force last night. And Wednesdays are kind of a, start to get busy, but a kind of about here night for Spaghetti Factory normally. And last night they were off the charts. They had more reservations than they normally do on Wednesday. They had far more people than they normally do on Wednesday. Several folks I talked to said we came out because we knew it was tip-a-cop. I will mention just for the fun of the evening that I don't remember seeing any new board members there, but that's okay.
That's why none of us shared it.
Yeah.
I shared it.
Oh,
I
that's
shared it.
right, that's right.
But it was fun, and I can tell you that Old Spaghetti Factory is a great partner. They embraced us, welcomed us with open arms, let us do a lot of stuff, which makes it a lot of fun. So I don't know how successful we were yet until everything's counted, but it was a good night. So now, as we discussed, I think in the opening of the meeting, Bob had a question. We're ramping up for the eclipse. We'll see what that turns out to be this weekend. That's or Monday. That'll have some impact on us. And then The following weekend, on the 26th, there's a very significant grand opening event. The grand opening of Love Bites takes place. That's going to have a pretty significant impact. Several thousand people we project, so it's going to be very similar to a cruise-in or a Robin Hood type of a response. So we're working with them and with the city, and so that's going to be a busy day for us. That's kind of an all hands on deck day. I can tell you that from a planning perspective, I want to give a shout out. Captain Daniel organizes a lot of these events. He organized the Tip of Cop last night. He's been since day one in with the organization, the planning for Love Bite. So doing a great job with that. So August is going to end really busy just as it started, and then we'll look forward to the start of school in September, which of course means heavy presence in our school zones from day one to make sure our kids are safe and folks are driving safely. So the final thing I had under staff report, I have to regret that it's not going to happen for a second month. Last month, Officer Bertrand was unavailable. This month, we just dropped the ball. It's as simple as that. So we will plan for September to have Officer Bertrand here to spend some time with you. And at that point, he will no longer be new. I'm sure several of you have met him. He's progressing at rapid pace through his training, which is not surprising because he's a very experienced police officer, Washington County police officer. So, but maybe we can expand a little bit in September to be a bit of an intro, and then also talk about his work in the schools and kind of what he envisions with that. So we'll set that up for September. So
Will the academy candidates be done by then?
yes. So their graduation is on Friday, September, I'm gonna say 8th, does that sound right? Okay, September 8th. So we will be down there, several of us. I'm gonna look at my calendar real quick. Yeah, so we have that taking place. So they'll finish and come back to resume their department field training the week after that. So,
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
oh, I do have one more thing, thank you. As if I didn't give you enough. Monday, September 11th is our annual 9/11 Memorial Blood Drive. 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Again, that's on September 11th, it's a Monday this year. It'll be here at the Sherwood Police Station. This is an extremely successful event every year. Their Red Cross is booked out with appointments, and they're able to take some walk-ins. So we have flyers in the back table, but that's coming on September 11th.
Are you saying they've got all the appointments booked?
No. What I'm saying is, it's a very successful event, and by the time the event comes around every year, they have their folks, but they're not yet. So please, everybody, make your appointment to give blood in honor of those that lost their lives on September 11th. Police officers, firefighters, and other first responders. That's what this event is held to honor. And if you've been there before, you've noticed that we have a display and a memorial flag up, and it's a pretty neat opportunity to come and give blood. So
You have the 9/11 flag?
we have one that we display. Yeah,
Both of them?
I think we just have the one.
You just have the first responders?
I think the one we have actually is just police officers. I'd have to check on the line.
I have a victim.
Yeah, I think there's one for the victims and there's one for the first responders.
Yeah, maybe the one we have is the first responder one.
I have one for, we can talk later, but I
Yeah.
have one for the victim.
Yeah, so, yeah, contact Angie or Wilson Parrish. Wilson, our police chaplain, is very instrumental in getting that organized and put together, and that's that was started by our chaplain, Wally Johnson, the blood drive was. And so Wilson has carried that legacy on, and it's a big deal for us. We love it. So, yeah, if you have anything that would help with that,
We have both.
yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Citizen comment?
Yes, I do.
Come on up.
You missed
Make
a
her come to the
really
table,
exciting
Jill.
evening last night.
Come up.
You have to be on camera.
This is just kind of unofficial. But I worked at the FinCom, and I wish you all could have seen the way these guys work last night, because they got to do more than sometimes they get to do. And they work and hustle. And everybody loves the cops here, they just do. But yet last night, you can see why. And then when we were all through, they fed us all. But it was just a real pleasant evening. And like I said before, the chief knows how to hire the right people. They're positive, they're happy, they're friendly, open the door, greet people. I mean, you know they're tired, and it's not new anymore, but these guys are really marvelous at their community relations that they have with our citizens. And it's just like a big love fest. It's really fun to be a part of it. And you know, I'm really proud of the way it came off last night. People they just like it. So I think we can be really proud of our folks. And Colton Wicker came home and put his uniform on, and he was just like happy to be there. He's not even out of the academy yet, but he and his parents always come to all of his events. So it's just a happy situation, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. All right. Anything else? Sorry, Lori, we're adjourned 15 minutes late.
That's all right.
Thanks.